Imagine, if you will, a time long ago when early Christians were not just passively sitting in pews, but actively engaging in spiritual practices so potent they claimed to encounter divine phenomena directly. Yes, they believed they could literally see divine light and even leave their bodies. These weren't just lofty metaphors or fanciful tales. These were real, documented experiences that shaped the early church. The practices were so impactful that they were eventually considered too dangerous for the average believer. Why, you ask? Well, think about it. If everyone could directly access divine power, the authority of traditional church hierarchy would be questioned. The church had a vested interest in maintaining control, so these practices were labeled heretical and buried. But some of these methods survived, and remarkably, they are still practiced today, especially by Orthodox monks who report experiencing the same mystical phenomena described nearly 2 millennia ago. One of the key practices to achieve theosis was the Jesus prayer. This isn't just any prayer, but a form of meditation and invocation. The prayer goes, Father, source of all light, reveal the kingdom that lives within me, synchronized with the practitioner's breathing. Imagine inhaling deeply while silently reciting the first half, and exhaling while completing the second half. This rhythmic, repetitive prayer is much like tuning a radio to find just the right frequency, allowing the practitioner to connect with divine consciousness. Scientists have been fascinated by the effects of such practices. Research shows that when monks recite the Jesus prayer, their brain activity mirrors that of people experiencing near-death experiences. Studies by Dr. Andrew Newberg at the University of Pennsylvania have revealed that during deep prayer, parts of the brain associated with the sense of self can become quiet, while others light up with activity. This isn't just anecdotal. It's measurable, scientific data supporting what early mystics claimed to experience. The Desert Fathers left behind extensive records. Figures like Evagrius Ponticus meticulously documented hundreds of spiritual experiences, and John Cassian wrote detailed manuals on prayer techniques. Their methods weren't random visions, but systematic approaches that yielded consistent, reproducible results. These practices were so effective that they found echoes in other mystical traditions across the world, from the Egyptians' concept of becoming Osiris to the Greeks' practice of henosis, and even in the Hindu tradition of samadhi. It seems these early Christians weren't inventing something new, but were tapping into universal spiritual practices and infusing them with their unique Christian elements. Today, in places like Mount Athos, Orthodox monks continue to experience phenomena identical to those described in 4th century texts. Modern science can now measure some of these mystical experiences, identifying patterns such as increased gamma waves and decreased activity in the parietal lobe, which are linked to elevated states of consciousness. This isn't just spiritual mumbo-jumbo. These are biological signatures of mystical experiences. But why aren't more people aware of these powerful spiritual technologies? It comes down to how Christianity evolved over the centuries, shifting from a practice-oriented to a belief-oriented tradition. The early Christians understood prayer as a technology for shifting consciousness, not just as a means of requesting divine intervention. Prayer wasn't about begging a distant God to listen, but about tuning oneself to receive what's already being broadcasted. The practice-centered approach of the Desert Fathers has stark contrasts with the form of Christianity most people experience today. While millions pray daily without profound mystical experiences, those who engage deeply with these ancient practices often report significant spiritual encounters. A 2009 study from Baylor University highlighted this gap, finding that the majority of American Christians have never experienced what they would describe as a mystical encounter with God. Meanwhile, Orthodox monasteries report that monks practicing these ancient techniques consistently encounter the so-called uncreated light. This light, experienced during deep states of prayer, is described across centuries and cultures. Simeon the New Theologian, a 10th century Byzantine monk, reported visions of divine light so vivid that he believed his cell was on fire. He devoted hours daily to the Jesus prayer, Fast forward to the 14th century. Gregory Palamas described similar experiences using the same practices. And this isn't just ancient history. Modern practitioners report the same experiences. The difference in spiritual experiences between those using these ancient practices and those who don't can't be ignored. In Protestant revivals, practices such as speaking in tongues and other ecstatic states sometimes mimic aspects of the Desert Fathers' techniques, although often in diluted forms. These practices have leaked out into the broader Christian tradition, but often without the depth and consistency found in the original methods. So how can you begin to engage with these practices? Start small, perhaps with the Jesus Prayer. Find a peaceful spot. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and breathe slowly through your nose. As you inhale, think, Father, source of all light. And as you exhale, think, reveal the kingdom that lives within me. It's that simple. Consistency is key, and even short daily sessions are more impactful than sporadic, longer attempts. Adding a heart focus can deepen the practice. Feel your heartbeat and concentrate on it while you pray. This heart-centered meditation has been reported to enhance the spiritual experience, sometimes leading to the perception of divine light. It's important to note that experiences vary greatly among practitioners, and there are no guarantees or timelines. Another dimension to explore is fasting. While traditional ascetic fasting may not be practical or safe for everyone, you can start by skipping a meal and using that time for prayer. This practice, linked to spiritual clarity across many traditions, can be a powerful complement to prayer, but it should always be approached with wisdom and caution. These practices may remind you of Eastern meditation, but it's important to recognize that the Jesus Prayer predates the introduction of such meditation techniques to the Western world. The Desert Fathers weren't borrowing from Eastern practices. They developed their own techniques grounded in the teachings of Christ. When Paul urged believers to pray without ceasing, the Desert Fathers took it literally, exploring what it meant to maintain a constant state of spiritual awareness. Of course, these practices, like any powerful tool, require respect and gradual development. Jumping in too intensely without proper guidance or community support can lead to difficulties. The Desert Fathers emphasized humility and gradual progress in their spiritual journeys. Some might worry about the Bible's warning against repetitive prayer. However, the critique is against mindless repetition, not the deep conscious invocation that the Jesus Prayer embodies. When done with intention, each repetition of the prayer deepens the connection and creates a momentum that can lead to profound spiritual states. Now let's take a moment to consider the implications of ignoring these practices. Continuing with conventional prayer could mean missing out on the direct, transformative experiences the early Christians knew. While sitting in church, feeling disconnected from the divine, others are experiencing the divine light and mystical union that come from these ancient practices. This isn't meant to criticize modern Christianity, but to highlight the potential depth that many believers might be missing. Imagine starting these practices and within weeks feeling a new aliveness in your spiritual life. Within months, you might experience glimpses of divine light, and within a year, have direct encounters with the divine. This isn't just about adding new techniques to your prayer routine, but about fundamentally transforming your relationship with God, moving from belief to direct experience, from faith to profound knowing. Taking the first steps to engage with these ancient practices can be like opening a door to a new way of being. You could find yourself living the kind of transformative Christianity that early believers practiced, rediscovering the spiritual power that was once a cornerstone of the faith. These ancient techniques are not just historical curiosities. They offer a path to profound spiritual transformation. If you're intrigued, consider exploring them further. There's a community out there engaging with these practices, experiencing the divine light, and breaking through to new spiritual heights. The invitation is open. The journey is yours to take. Welcome to a deeper understanding of early Christian spirituality. Welcome home. To truly appreciate how these practices can transform one's spiritual life, let's delve deeper into the historical context and the lives of those who pioneered these methods. The Desert Fathers, for instance, were not just isolated monks living in solitude. They were part of a vibrant community of seekers who dedicated their lives to exploring the depths of spiritual consciousness. They lived in the harsh deserts of Egypt, Syria, and Palestine, choosing these remote locations to escape the distractions of the world and focus entirely on their spiritual journeys. Their lives were marked by simplicity, humility, and an unwavering commitment to prayer and contemplation. One of the most fascinating aspects of their practices was their emphasis on inner transformation. They believed that true spiritual growth required a radical reorientation of one's inner life, a process that involved confronting one's deepest fears, desires, and attachments. This inner work was not easy, and it often required years of dedicated practice. However, those who persevered reported profound changes in their consciousness, including a heightened sense of peace, clarity, and connection to the divine. The Desert Fathers also placed a strong emphasis on community and mentorship. They understood that the spiritual journey could be challenging and that having the support of a community and the guidance of a mentor was crucial. Many of them lived in small monastic communities where they could support and encourage one another. They also sought out experienced spiritual guides who could offer wisdom and insight based on their own experiences. This communal aspect of their practices is something that is often missing in modern spirituality. In today's fast-paced world, many people feel isolated and disconnected from others, which can make it difficult to sustain a spiritual practice. However, by connecting with others who share similar goals and values, individuals can find the support and encouragement they need to persevere on their spiritual paths. Another key element of the Desert Fathers' practices was their use of silence and solitude. They believed that in order to hear the still small voice of God, one needed to create space for silence and solitude in one's life. This meant setting aside regular times for quiet reflection and contemplation, away from the noise and distractions of the world. In these moments of silence, they could listen deeply to their inner selves and to the whispers of the divine. In our modern world, silence and solitude are often hard to come by. We are constantly bombarded with information and stimuli, which can make it difficult to find moments of stillness. However, by intentionally creating space for silence and solitude, we can begin to cultivate a deeper awareness of our inner selves and our connection to the divine. The Desert Fathers also practiced what they called watchfulness, a form of mindfulness that involved being fully present in each moment and attentive to one's thoughts and actions. They believed that by cultivating this awareness, they could better discern the movements of the Spirit within them and respond to the divine promptings in their lives. This practice of watchfulness is similar to modern mindfulness practices, which have been shown to have numerous benefits for mental and emotional well-being. By bringing a mindful awareness to our daily lives, we can become more attuned to the present moment and more open to the spiritual dimensions of our experiences. In addition to these practices, the Desert Fathers also engaged in acts of service and compassion. They believed that true spirituality was not just about personal transformation, but also about serving others and making a positive impact in the world. They often provided hospitality to travelers, cared for the sick and needy, and offered guidance and support to those who sought their help. This emphasis on service is an important reminder that spirituality is not just about personal growth, but also about contributing to the well-being of others. By reaching out to those in need and offering our support and compassion, we can embody the love and light of the divine in our daily lives. As we consider the practices of the Desert Fathers and their relevance for our lives today, it's important to remember that these practices are not about achieving perfection or attaining some lofty spiritual goal. Rather, they are about cultivating a deeper awareness of our inner selves and our connection to the divine, and living in a way that reflects that awareness. Incorporating these practices into our lives can be a gradual process. We might start by setting aside a few minutes each day for silent prayer or meditation, or by finding a community of like-minded individuals to support us on our journey. We might also look for opportunities to serve others and make a positive impact in our communities. As we engage with these practices, we may find that our spiritual lives begin to deepen and expand in ways we never imagined. We may experience moments of profound peace and clarity, or feel a sense of connection to something greater than ourselves. We may also encounter challenges and obstacles along the way, but with perseverance and dedication, we can continue to grow and evolve on our spiritual paths. Ultimately, the practices of the Desert Fathers offer a rich and transformative path for those seeking a deeper connection to the divine. By embracing these ancient techniques and integrating them into our modern lives, we can rediscover the spiritual power that was once a cornerstone of the Christian faith and embark on a journey of profound transformation and awakening.